in my opinion, it's always come down to the design. What is the limitation of the platform you're developing for? Design around the limitations, and you'll create the best product.
I think they all bring up great points. Each platform has its place. PC has made some great strides forwards, which has sort of made it a more viable platform than it's ever been before. One of the things that we've learned from console and from phone is that some of the most financially successful platforms are also areas that have channels to sell product. Historically, one of the biggest challenges on PC is, well, where do I buy the game? With the emergence of SEO and SEM, today you go type in Bejeweled and boom, there's 30 places you could go buy the game. So it was a little more confusing for a consumer. Where on iPhone, you just go, you type it in, there's only one place to buy the game. With the emergence of social games, one of our sort of more lucrative platforms these days is Facebook. And Facebook is one of those platforms which both has the e-commerce. It's a great platform to design for. It's easy to sort of iterate quickly. We're no longer taking this product approach where you make your game, you ship it, you're done with it. It's an evolving process where you put something up, you see how your audience reacts, and you keep iterating. And that's one of the beauties that the PC allows us right now.
Yeah, so I'm not getting the connection between games and Facebook. Help me. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. What connection are you missing between games and Facebook?
That we want to play games on Facebook. Social games? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, social games,
okay.
Games like from PopCap like Bejeweled Blitz, Zuma Blitz, and Solitaire Blitz, which are all played on Facebook.
I thought you were leading up to gamification. Sorry.
No.
Okay. All right, so then shifting just a little bit, a little eye contact there, I can't do that. So shifting just a little, yeah, you're going to be the lead guy.
Okay,
you're
great.
Going to set the tone.
Hot seat.
I'm supposed to be the cleanup.
I thought you were the cleanup guy.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
I screwed that up, didn't I? Anyway, so how about 3D? When I say 3D, I mean stereo vision. I hate to use the word 3D in games and not say stereo. I prefer S3D. But so how about 3D? And two questions. Do you see it ever becoming 3D from the ground up, or are we always going to be stuck with 2D to 3D conversion in the drivers? And part B is, what about mobile devices in 3D?
Okay, so right now 3D to me is a gimmick. I saw the Avengers in a theater in 3D, and it hurt my eyes, right? I got through it. I didn't realize it until I was already walking through the theater door. So I went through it again and disappointed. 3D TVs disappoint. 3D gaming in general tends to disappoint. 3D stereoscopic vision, we can be very clear there. But 3D itself is actually terrific. And then if we could get a technology change, something to produce, like, the Retina display took monitor, technology to a whole new level where we were like, wow, I didn't even realize anybody was trying to solve that problem. And then yesterday we see the announcement on the 2880 resolution new MacBook, and we just go, oh, God, that's so good. Gotta have it. Didn't know I wanted it. When I woke up yesterday
Can't afford
morning,
it.
Now I want it. But so somebody could do that in 3D stereoscopic visualization systems, and then we're looking at it, and instead of looking at a computer monitor thing, I think I'm looking at a crowd like you guys, and I'm going, holy cow, this is great. Of course I want this now. But it's not there yet, and it could take, heck, who knows? It could take 20 years. It could take 3 years. Anybody's guess. But it's not there yet.
Well, I'm going to talk about this for a while because we have a bit of experience doing 3D. First of all, I think that 3D is a gimmick. What I think happened was after Avatar came out, people identified Avatar's success to the fact it was 3D. I think it was because they had blue people, but they think it's 3D. And once that happens, people want to sell their new TVs, and there's this whole supply chain thing. So there's a lot of pressure to do 3D. We actually did support 3D for Civilization 5. If you get the 3D glasses and all that stuff, it will work. And it actually looks surprisingly good. It surprised me how...
Was it native 3D or converted?
What do you mean native?
Did you design it for 3D?
We did a lot of design work to make it work in 3D. Actually, the main problem with going to 3D is that when you have a 3D scene is intrinsically relatively straightforward because you just render a separate time and from a different camera, and then you've got 3D. The main problem, the real difficulty is what do you do about mouse? What do you do about UI? Because UI is 2D, so how does 2D stuff work in a 3D? That was one of the... That's actually where we spent all the time.
HUDs and sightings.
Hmm?
HUDs are a problem.
Yeah, HUDs
Smoke's a
and
problem.
the cursor, like what does a cursor do, right? I mean, you have to make your cursor in 3D, so we had to do that in Civilization, so it kind of tracked across the world in 3D. There's a lot of odds and ends like that. A couple of surprising things. One of the things that's interesting about 3D is that you get more detail, and I didn't expect this, that because you're receiving the image from two different images, your eye kind of is compositing both images together, and even at say 1920 or 1080p resolution rather, if you do a stereo, it appears more detailed just because you're getting an offset of the image and you're getting more fidelity through than you would with just one eye. And it's something I've not seen with movies, but it was clearly the case when we were doing it, that it appeared more detailed. Now, the main complaint I have about 3D, and the reason why I think it's a gimmick, having said that we did work quite well with it, is that stereoscopy is an often cited feature for, that's what 3D really is. But in reality, stereoscopy is only important to humans when something is within grasping range. So if I'm going to grab this microphone, then 3D matters to me. When you get beyond like 6 to 8 feet, it becomes utterly irrelevant. And people have done studies doing motion cues versus your stereoscopy, and motion cues always win for the perception of 3D. So if you're in a more traditional game, like more typical game like an FPS or something where most things are far away from you, you're not actually going to gain a lot through 3D vision. For us, we kind of are like a tabletop game, so it was more like you're hovering a few feet over a board, and that view you do get a lot better reception for 3D. It isn't hard to support, honestly. It's only about a month of work for us, depending on the way your renderer is set up. So, but it's still, I don't know how many people actually go out and play our game that way. I haven't really run into a lot of people who do.
I think one of the fundamental problems with stereoscopic 3D is you've got to wear the glasses. I think people just don't want to wear them. I think if the TV, you switched it on and it was just in 3D, I think people just accept that, and if the quality was good enough, that would be the way forwards. In terms of our games, yeah, we do native support. There's no sort of driver hack or anything. It's sort of native support of sort of quad buffer style rendering. And yeah, I mean, like Dan says, it does bring out a certain amount of detail that you perhaps wouldn't get in just standard 2D. And I think as games get more geometrically detailed as well, they look more 3D. Say if you've got like a road sort of going down sort of into the distance, and if that was all significantly more tessellated, significantly more polys in it, it would look more 3D. And I think that might make stereoscopic rendering a bit more compelling in the future.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is you do lose some of the things, like if you use billboard tricks for the grass and stuff, those don't work. So there are some issues that you run into.
Yeah.
I totally agree. The reason it's so popular now is because the TV manufacturers figured out how to go from 120 hertz to 240 hertz, and they said, "What do we do with all this extra bandwidth?" Well, hell, let's render the image twice, and we'll give them glasses, and we'll call it 3D. But 3D is not new. I mean, back in the 90s or late 80s, early 90s, there was a company called Forte that had this helmet. And you could flip the visor down, and it looked like one of those things from Star Wars, and you could have a 3D game. And we totally wrote Might and Magic for 3D back in this day. And again, it was a nice gimmick. I think it's a perfect word for it. But it really is just a marketing ploy. Hey, our game's also in 3D as a way to get extra noise, right? I can't tell you how many friends I have that all bought 3D televisions that don't use them for 3D at all. It was a great thing. They got the glasses, and then they're like, I don't like the glasses. It makes my head hurt. They don't know the difference between top to bottom or side by side, or which is the setting I need. And it's too complicated. When it becomes Star Wars, where Princess Leia's talking out of a droid, great, let's have 3D. But right now, I just don't see it as something that's effective.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, academically, it's a very interesting technology to look at, but from a mainstream consumer, product, it's not quite there yet.
Well, just hang on, I want to follow up. So you commented about the glasses, and everybody's commented about the glasses. And so in handheld devices, up to even the 7-inch, maybe even 10-inch screen, you don't really need to wear glasses. So the subtext of the question I asked was, do you think 3D has a bigger future in handheld devices because of the lack of the need for the glasses than it would have on consoles, PCs, et cetera? Okay. No, you. You. Because you brought it up, so respond.
I don't know. I mean, I've played the 3DS and I wasn't exactly blown away with it.
Yeah.
Personally.
Was it brightness?
I just wasn't that captivated by such a small screen, even if it was 3D.
And some of the phones now have it. You know, you've seen the commercial with the guy playing ping pong, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I got a 3D shot, you know. But again, I still think it's a gimmick, right? It's a nice thing to have to add extra bonus. Hey, download our app, it's in 3D. But the majority of the people that want to play that game are probably not going to be playing it in 3D, so we have to make it for them too.
Yeah, well, I mean,
So it's not about glasses then?
yeah, I
No,
think-
but glasses do hurt your eyes. Anybody wear 3D glasses not have a headache? Take Advil afterwards? You know,
And I think there are applications for it outside games. I mean, if like medical visualization or CAD program, like where it could be really important to be able to distinguish the 3D. But yeah, I don't. It's just too gimmicky, and it doesn't really. I mean, the big thing is add to your game experience, and maybe not enough to matter.
unless you get the feedback. You know, if you get the tactile feedback from a glove or something,
that'd be
that,
nice.
oh, I touched something, then it becomes like immersive. But I just don't get that immersion from, you know, a 2D display. I saw a TV once, I think it was last year at E3, and it was a 3D TV without glasses, but it kind of reminded me of a holograph where it had like etchings on it and you had to look at it at the right angle. And it was fine, but after a while, my head still hurt. I don't know what it was. I have a
Cheap-
bad head, I
cheap
guess,
wine?
but It could have been the cheap wine. It definitely could have been.
I think one of the problems with these small screens is still the image quality is not there.
Mhm.
I think perhaps if the quality was sufficient to look, genuinely 3D, I think you could be blown away with it.
Yeah, I mean, typically they'll cut the resolution in half to satisfy the 2-eye thing, but with this new Mac screen, it's the potential there is that you have HD res in each eye. I think that's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. I think a more interesting technology for TVs in the future is 4K resolutions.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a 4K TV, it's
Also,
Yeah,
one of the
stunning.
One of the big problems that's pretty much a showstopper for 3D is that it doesn't really work because when you have your eyes are tracking a 3D scene, you have different focal planes where you're concentrating, and things will pull in and out of focus. So in order to really do 3D correctly, you'd have to track the eyes and figure out what plane you're focusing on, because otherwise what you get is a 3D image that's perfectly in focus, and that's incredibly wrong. And your eyes are that's one reason why you get eye strain. Your eyes are incredibly confused. Your brain's incredibly confused by the fact that everywhere you look in this 3D scene, it's coming in, and stereoscopy is completely in focus. It's just not how it works. There are some interesting technologies that do deep focus that are a lot more immersive, but that's an intrinsic problem with 3D that's not often
So
discussed.
can I use the Kinect to focus in on the eyes and figure out what you're
You,
looking
you
at?
can eye track. I mean, it's doable, but I think that's honestly critical so that your brain's going to process it correctly. And you would get a more interesting experience if your eyes actually tracked on stuff and things came in and out of focus based off how your eyes were looking at it. But don't underestimate that. That's a big.
There's apps on the phone that will do eye tracking with the front-facing camera, and you can do this and see a 3D model move around and so forth. I haven't seen any games yet for it, but it's totally glasses-free. It's not lenticular lens or anything. It's a normal lens. It just is looking at where you're looking and trying to give you the perspective that you want.
There's also an app I saw, I can't remember the name of it, on the iPhone, where it's based on you tilting. It shows you a different angle.
Yeah.
Because you can.
That's the
Anyway.
same. It's probably the same
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So, excuse me. What do you think about the future of physical media? Do you think that we're going to continue to go to Best Buy and Walgreens and buy CDs and DVDs and stick them in computers and consoles and play games, or is it all going to go to a download and a partial download and first to play, so forth?
Yes.
I
Well, that
agree.
concludes this
Yes.
panel, so we'll-
People,
Yes.
people like instant gratification, right? I don't want to get off my chair, go to the store, and buy it if I can just click download and play it in 2 seconds. I mean, connection speeds are so fast nowadays. I have a 50 megabit connection to my house. Time Warner Cable gives you 50 megabits. I can download, bing, done. I mean,
And
instant gratification.
And the supply side, for ability to, like, for Civ 5, we didn't ship the EXE on the disc for piracy reasons. I mean, on the supply side, it's just so attractive to not have to print media and stuff. Even if you lose 20-30% of people, you'll still make more money because of the supply cost.
Yeah, and you don't have the inventory.
You don't have inventory. There's just
Yeah.
too much inertia
You have
behind
no
it.
regard for the people making those plastic cases? They're all going to be out of work?
Yeah, no, they have other
Well,
things they can
think of the environment.